Hello everyone and welcome to my Creating Curriculum in Tectonics project. My name is Anthony Mahady and this will be an extension of my curriculum review project from a couple weeks ago. So quick description, I created a lab that will serve as a hook for the unit and as a process assessment at the same time. I'm thinking this will work because the students have already been exposed to this content in their previous year. So it works to refresh and excite them about it again. This also allows us to connect multiple topics by revisiting our previous units that involve law of conservation of mass, law of conservation of matter, law of conservation of energy, and we'll rely on this information to infer about where the tectonic plates go when they're under one another. I utilized the feedback given on my curriculum review project to ascertain the need for a specific processing assessment. I realized that we had some processing questions throughout the unit, but it wasn't as specific and as it needed to be, and needed to be more direct, and they needed to process a little bit more. So I apologize for the wordiness of this slide, but felt it was important to post the entire statement on here. So here it is. The purpose of the creation of this lab is to reignite an interest in plate tectonics. It will serve as the hook for this unit while also serving as a process assessment. While this may seem strange, the students have already covered this unit, tectonics, in their previous year, which allows them to use the lab as a hook to get them reinterested in the topic while also giving them an opportunity or chance to process and revisit some of the content and ideas from the previous year. So really is a nice chance to have a bridge between stuff that they already know and stuff they've already learned and stuff that they're going to expand on while also just getting them excited about this again. So for standards, Minnesota State Science Standard 9.3.1.1.1 states, as you can see on the screen, compare and contrast the interaction of tectonic plates at convergent and divergent boundaries. For example, compare the kinds of magma that emerge at plate boundaries. So this standard is involved in this lab because students will be converging and diverging different amounts of Play-Doh and inferring about the geologic structures that are created at both. So I'll talk about this a little bit later, but they'll use their hands to manipulate the Play-Doh in the same ways that the plates move. Minnesota State Science Standard 9.3.1.1.5 states, describe how experimental and observational evidence led to the theory of plate tectonics. So this standard just drives the purpose of this lab because students are experimenting and observing the creation of different features and the processes which justify the theory of plate tectonics. So we'll talk about seafloor spreading. We'll be able to talk about how this mountain chain follows with that mountain chain. We'll talk about if we pushed all this Play-Doh together, it'll create Pangea. So this is totally driven right from the second standard. Also, in science next year, year 2021-2022, the new science standards are going to be implemented next year. And this is, of course, with the caveat of COVID and everything, we assume they're still going to be implemented. But they're based heavily upon observation and experimentation. I thought this lab would do a great job of covering the two standards while also being applicable in the future using those new standards for manipulating and experimenting and explaining and describing. Okay, materials. Hope you can see this okay. I just took screenshots of the lab that I created, and I can post this as well if need be. But I wrote the lab with influence from the Lawler textbook, just thinking of process assessments and really keeping the procedure super simple, and then having them list observations and expecting them to be extremely detailed, while also having 4 process or think questions towards the end. So, okay, great, you did this, but why are we doing this? Think about this on a deeper level. Connect this Play-Doh to the earth and see what connections you have. What do you notice about these mountains? What do you notice about this big hole that we're creating? Things of that nature. So feel free to read along in there, or I can post this lab as well. So this lab allows students to revisit information they learned last year when they were in 8th grade, because I have them in 9th grade, knocking off the rust and encouraging retainment of this knowledge. It gets student attention because we're playing with Play-Doh, right? We have some sort of manipulative in front of them, and I think all of us can agree that usually sparks attention more so than us standing up and reading notes. It allows them to explore, create, and manipulate Play-Doh in a fashion that is much more conducive to learning than looking at a paper map, which is usually what we start with. It covers Minnesota State Science Standards 9.3.1.1.1 and 9.3.1.1.5, while also using strategies like exploring, student discovery, student manipulation, all of those mentioned in the new science standards that will be implemented hopefully next year. Finally, this lab allows students to think and explore with a manipulative and process what they're doing with their hands and the implications that these processes will have on the earth. So it connects these old ideas that they've had with the new ideas, allowing them to sort of reprocess that information while also getting them excited at the same time. So really just taking the idea of a hook and process assessment and smashing it together, because they have learned this stuff before. So we're starting to get that processing going right from the first day of the unit. And cited the Lawler text there at the bottom. Lots of good stuff about process assessment in there. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions, but this is my creating curriculum project. Thanks.